Hey everybody, welcome back. We're here on the Antietam National Battlefield Park, and it is Antietam 158, and it is exactly 158 for what we're going to be talking about today. We're standing in the regrowing East Woods at Antietam. You might have already seen a live video where we talked about the woods and how the woods were named and what the actual woods are, so refer back to that, okay? Another video we've already shot but haven't been able to post yet. We're having some Facebook difficulties today. Somehow live is easier than not live today. But we already went to the upper bridge. The reason I want to tell you that is that this is, of course, what brings on some pretty intense fighting on the 16th. Oh, I thought Antietam was only fought on the 17th. Not true. And our first, second, and third guests are going to talk about this a little bit. But just to take it a little further, you've got the upper bridge about 2.5 miles north of here. Okay, the cornfield, by the way, is right behind me. You're practically looking at the northern reaches of the cornfield there. And the upper bridge is off in that direction. And on the daytime on the 16th, George McClellan has decided to cross first the 1st Corps and then the 12th Corps across this upper bridge or Hooker Bridge, okay? Watch our video on that to learn more about that. So you're going to have Hooker's men going across. Some are going to use a ford as well. But in the end, you have Meade and Ricketts and Doubleday, Hooker's 3 divisions coming across. And on the afternoon of the 16th, you have Meade's division starting to enter these woods. Not the East Woods, just the woods that we now call the East Woods. And coming up from the south are some Confederates, okay, who were kind of oriented that way, but whoa, there's Yankees here. And the Southerners under John Bell Hood, not just his brigade, he's got a division, not all of it's here, but he's going to bring them up as well. And there's going to be a fight in these woods on the 16th. To talk a little bit more about that and about the umbrella surrounding, whoa, there's fighting on the day before. Let's bring in our friend, Bryan Cheeseboro. You've seen him online. Here we are out on the field. He works at the National Archives as a technician. He is involved with the Civil War Defenses of Washington Board, and he is co-administrator of the Civil War Historians Facebook page. And he runs a tight ship, which I respect on that front. Bryan, come on.
Well, thank you, Gary. So here we are again at on the edge of the East Woods here at Antietam Battlefield, and like Gary said, I mean he just put it so well that I think Antietam really can be thought of as a 2-day battle. You know, September 16th, 17th, 1862, and I think the thing is when we call it the Bloodiest day, for many it's become the only day. So I always like it when we can really challenge established narratives, established stories, or whatever it is, and find out maybe it's time to think about this in a different way. So as Gary said, the Union troops come from this direction. They cross the northern bridge, they cross some fords, and they make it down to this field. So as they come down, and a number of these troops are Pennsylvania troops, and I'm going to talk specifically about the 13th Pennsylvania Reserves because of the colonel of that regiment, Colonel Hugh Watson McNeil. So as they come down, they run into Confederates, and then the Confederates see them and they start shooting. And this is starts about 4 in the afternoon, which is about where we're very close to right now. So the sun you see and all of that, I guess, is about what they would have seen. Anyway, they run into Confederates, shots are fired, and it's not just maybe even a skirmish. I've read about artillery fire and all that. So long story short, Hugh McNeil is shot and wounded, and as he's dying, his words are, "Take me to the rear, boys, and don't let me fall in enemy hands," which they don't. So he ends up dying somewhere over, I think, by the Smoketown Road, I'm told. But anyway, again, you can also, too, go to findagrave.com, and you can see Hugh Watson McNeil, died 1862. He was born, I think, 1832. But anyway, you can look him up and see his headstone. It's laid down on the ground now, but it says killed at Antietam, September 16th, 1862. It's not a mistake, not an error. September 16th, 1862, shot right over here, and then he ends up dying. So how much does it matter of 1 day or 2 days? I don't know. Obviously, to McNeil's family, it didn't matter. He died on the 16th. They lost him on the 16th. But I think, again, it's important when we can understand and get out of our comfort zone on how we see history. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Brian. We haven't seen the last of you on these things, I think. And thanks, everybody, for watching. I'm seeing people from all over the place, kind of locally at Ellicott City, Maryland, but we've got New York. I'm seeing New Jersey, California, and it looks like Atlanta and elsewhere. And, of course, Mary Munsell Abro, Antietam is her place. So good to see you here. And John Canaster can always be counted on for some good hashtags. And have I lost it already? It said something. Oh, yeah. Hashtag, whoa, there's Yankees here. Obviously, I like that one. You'll recall that we are partnering with our friends at Ancestry. Thank you, Anne from Ancestry, our friend who has arranged some free Ancestry subscriptions. That's a $300 value. A few of you are going to get those. We have 2 of those plus some Fold 3 subscriptions as well. And today, this year's game is where I break out 2 sequential words from a well-known quote, some more well-known than others, and you have to tell me who said it and what the circumstances were. You'll recall I had other ones like ingloriously fly. That's General Hooker talking about what Lee is going to have to do before Chancellorsville. But this one, let's go with unvexed too. Who said unvexed too, and what did they mean? And then how about another one? This one's a lot harder. True respect for anyone who gets this. Than annoy. Who said then annoy? Okay, and post your comments on there. Who said it? What were the circumstances? Be amusing if you can. That might increase your chances of actually getting one of these subscriptions. And to talk more about the fighting on the 16th, let's bring up Tom Clemens, licensed battlefield guide and Save Historic Antietam Foundation, along with his dog Tyler.
Thanks, Gary. Yes, it always comes as a surprise to new visitors to Antietam that there is fighting on the 16th, and it was fairly heavy. As was pointed out earlier, Hooker is advancing down the Smoketown Road, which would be off to my left front, and he has a couple companies of the 3rd Pennsylvania Cavalry out as a scout, and the famous Pennsylvania Bucktails deployed as skirmishers, leading the advance with the rest of Meade's Pennsylvania Division, Reserves Division behind the Bucktails. And they encounter essentially Hood's division, with the 2 brigades commanded by Colonel Wofford of Georgia, with the Texans in that brigade, and Colonel Evander Law's brigade making up Hood's division here at Antietam. And they get into a very lively firefight right about where we are here. We're in the lower part of the East Woods, but the fighting is up along this East Woods front, and there are essentially regimental volleys going on. Interestingly enough, George McClellan is here in person while this fighting is going on, and at one point a Pennsylvania artillery battery is brought up to duel with Confederate guns near the Dunkard Church in that direction, and McClellan goes over and is directing the fire of this artillery battery. So for those who suggest that McClellan was never actually under fire, he's very much here under fire on the night of the 16th. And in fact, Brian talked about Colonel McNeil of the Bucktails being killed here. In addition, Colonel Liddell of the 11th Mississippi Infantry in Law's brigade is also killed on the night of the 16th. So when you see a fight where 2 colonels are getting killed, this is a whole lot more than skirmishers. This is a full-fledged fight on the late afternoon, early evening of the 16th, and Hood's brigade will pull back during the night to rest and refit because they felt they've been in enough of a fight that they need to pull back and essentially reorganize. So there is a pretty lively fight here on the night of the 16th, and so you could really see essentially darkness is the only thing that ends the fighting, and as soon as it's light enough on the morning of the 17th, the fighting starts right back up again. So I think in Brian's description of this, it really is one unending fight from the afternoon of the 16th to the afternoon of the 17th.
Good, good. As Tom and Tyler leave the scene here, and that does bring up an interesting thing. When I hear people talking about the bloodiest day, I hear newspaper, TV, and radio reporters regularly say it's the bloodiest 24-hour period. Well, that just isn't true. And just before this live, we were just talking, and Chris was like, yeah, what about May 2nd and 3rd at Chancellorsville? And I always say, what about July 2nd and 3rd at Gettysburg, where that fighting includes Pickett's Charge and the whole second day, and all the fighting at Culp's Hill. So it is interesting about the nomenclature of it, but there's no doubt that some of these soldiers, you know, were actually, really fighting and being killed, wounded, and captured on the 16th as well. So something to keep in mind. I'm happy to see Tom Moore, Melissa Espinoza on here, and someone from Niagara Falls. You knew I would do it if you brought it up. So I just wanted to say that we're really happy to have you here on the battlefield with us. Make sure you share this with your friends. And we're going to bring on Dennis Frye again to talk a little bit about this. Hold on, wait. You'll see later we were at the upper bridge, and McClellan crossed with the troops and came under fire. Did McClellan cross the river at all? I guess he did it once. Did he do it again, Dennis? Looks like you're going to have to go to him.
Anybody that knows me and has followed me as a Civil War historian over the decades knows that I don't like George McClellan. Now, most of you out there probably have a similar sentiment. You don't like McClellan. I've made a career out of bashing George McClellan, and I've enjoyed every moment of it. However, as I've gotten older, sometimes when you get older, you do become wiser. There is truth to that. And I never thought I'd be as old as Robert E. Lee is here at Antietam. He's 55. Well, now I've surpassed 55. And so you do get a little bit smarter if you allow yourself to. And if you permit yourself to, you could even open your mind to new ideas and new perspectives and new considerations. And so I've tried to do that over the last 20 years or so of my professional career as a public historian. And one thing I discovered is that George McClellan has some things going for him. And let me talk about one right now. On September the 16th, when most histories that you read about the Battle of Antietam will claim, or even more, try to convince you that George McClellan is twiddling his thumbs, doing nothing, that it's a day lost, and that the war actually is lost on September 16th, 1862, because McClellan is immobile. Well, none of that's true. That's all falsehood. It's not true. Yeah, you go back and read the books and you're going to say, I'm the liar. No, 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 no. The people that are writing the books aren't giving you the truth. McClellan moves on the 16th in a substantial way. 25% of his army is across the Antietam Creek on the late afternoon of the 16th. And not only do they cross the Antietam Creek, they place themselves in a position north of Lee. And what they do is most significant. When the First Corps arrives here, just north of us, north of the cornfield, one of the first things it doesn't start firing bullets and shells at the Confederates. It does something more passive, but which changes the course of history. They seize, the First Corps seizes the Hagerstown-Sharpsburg Turnpike. And what that, in effect, does is block Robert E. Lee from continuing the invasion. He cannot go north. McClellan has successfully, on the afternoon of September the 16th, created a blockade, a powerful blockade that Lee's not going to penetrate, and Lee now is in trouble. His plan to continue the invasion is over. McClellan has taken that option away from him. This is basically, did you know that? It's unknown. McClellan gets no credit for this brilliant maneuver that cost him not a single person. He seizes the road that leads Lee to Pennsylvania, and now he can't go there. So McClellan has frustrated Lee's invasion plan several times now, and this is most consequential. So what's Lee going to do? Well, probably George McClellan says, I got him. Not for a fight. McClellan's not itching for a fight. If you can maneuver, why fight? If you can maneuver your enemy to go away, there's no need for a fight. I guess a good person to ask that question would be a fellow named Sherman, who uses maneuver to defeat the Confederates and wasn't itching for or looking for a fight. This is McClellan being Shermanesque, if you will. He has maneuvered Lee into a horrible position and defeated his plan for invasion. So Lee has basically maybe two choices. One is stay here and fight. Two is go home. And he's only 3 miles from home. 3 miles. Virginia, today West Virginia, is so close, so near. He has a ford that he owns. He has plenty of time to go home, go away. He wouldn't lose hardly anybody if he decides to do that. And so Lee's best option on September the 16th is not to stand here. What does he gain? He can't go north. Go home. Let's think about this. Let's regroup. We can fight another day. I think this is what McClellan's depending upon. In fact, to reinforce it, you know what? George McClellan decides to punch Robert E. Lee in the face. Look at that visual. McClellan punching Lee. Yeah, that's what September the 16th is all about. It is a direct punch. What Bryan and Tom were speaking about was purposeful, intentional. It wasn't accidental. You know, for the longest time I thought McClellan made a huge mistake here in telegraphing his punch. And I've heard so many other historians say the same thing. I didn't invent that. I was following them, following their thought. Telegraph the punch. You told him you were there. Gives Lee time to adjust. No, McClellan punches Lee because McClellan says, you know what, buddy? Here I am. I dare you to stand in front of me. Why don't you just go on home? Well, you know, Robert E. Lee is a fighter. And he's got his fight up. He's not going home. So on September the 16th, the Confederate Army is getting bigger and bigger and bigger because its numbers are growing. Oh yeah, its numbers are growing. They're coming up from Harper's Ferry. Remember, 2/3 of the Confederate Army isn't with Lee when he arrives along the Antietam Creek. 2 out of every 3 rebels is at Harper's Ferry. So on the 15th, Lee's waiting. On the 16th, Lee is waiting. On the 17th, Lee is still waiting for troops to come up from Harper's Ferry. And they're coming. They're coming. And we're in for a fight.
Oh man, I thought about poking the bear a little bit more. Dennis is getting nicely worked up. I think that portends well for any other videos we might shoot. You're with the American Battlefield Trust. We are here at Antietam, and I see a lot of our friends watching, and please share it with your friends so as many people can see it as possible. Happy to see Mary Abro still here and so many others. Someone that's not a fan of Sherman, no big surprise there. John Canaster's wondering if we're going to go live at Fredericksburg this year. I'll bet you the guy behind the camera, Chris White, would love to go live at Fredericksburg every few days. He used to be a ranger there, as well as our colleague Dan Davis. I'll bet you they'd like to. That's unconfirmed. In COVID time, where we travel, when, and do what is all up in the air, but we're really happy to be able to bring you this one here today. Now, it's interesting about being out here on the 16th. It was exactly 158 years ago right now, maybe accounting for daylight savings time, that this fighting started flaring here. With a few ruminations on that, let's bring Bryan back up to talk about it. What about the day?
Well, thanks, Gary. You know, I've always heard that if you're going to visit a Civil War battlefield, the best time to do it is as close to the date of the actual battle as opposed to coming here in April or something. September in this area, and I was born and raised in DC, so I know this area pretty well. September around here has always been really, really nice. As a matter of fact, for as horrible a day as September 11, 2001 was, the weather that day was beautiful. But anyway, I was reading just brushing up on my Antietam, and just reading about the soldiers being here on the field, going into that evening. So like we talked about, fighting started, darkness stops it, and rain also stops it too. It started raining that night. So those things really just kind of put a halt to things, because black powder doesn't work in the rain. Anyway, one soldier, he talked about how overnight he felt like someone was taking a piece of ice and just rubbing it up and down his back. And last night when I was outside, I'm like, it's kind of chilly. So I can really kind of appreciate that thing that soldier was talking about, for being in the same area, for being that same time of year. And I think really considering the weather, when we talk about these battles and look at them on maps and stuff like that, the weather just kind of gets thrown aside. But the weather really does play a factor in the Civil War, especially. You can't fight at nighttime. winter quarters. Soldiers went into winter quarters and such. So Antietam, you know, how much it really affected soldiers, and like we said, the fighting starts on the 16th. It could have continued, but it had to stop for the weather, for rain, as well as the darkness. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Brian. I think we're going to wrap this one up, but just know that, you know, there is not a very long time in between when this fighting ends, as Tom said, and the morning fighting is going to begin. So we're going to have a lot to cover when we start hitting here in the morning. You know, not to mention that it's not just the Battle of Antietam. We've got the Battle of Shepherdstown 2 days after this battle. We've got the town of Sharpsburg, which will likely be our next video. We're going to go through town with Dennis Frye, and there's all sorts of cool things, light moments and otherwise, in Sharpsburg as well. So please keep sharing this, and please keep commenting positively, engaging with us as we go along to make this as interesting as possible. And one more thing, you know, as going out, you may have already seen our video. In case you didn't, we are all mourning the passing of the legendary Ed Bars, and it's all over social media, and we already recorded a specific video about that immediately preceded this one if you want to go check that out. Thank you for continuing to support Ed's legacy. Battlefield preservation was very important to him. It's important to us. We hope it's important to you too. Thank you for watching.